I just wanted to address a mistake I made earlier in the previous video. And since I missed yesterday, I'll just count the earlier one as yesterday's log and this one as today's log. Okay. So I said that if you were to say quit drinking, that would just bring you back to the starting line. That's not true. If you do it right, the act of breaking a bad habit is worth more than undoing the mistake, because now the process itself teaches you, well, now you've learned the process of breaking bad habits and improving. And if now you've built a habit of changing your life for the better, of doing things you don't want to do, to do more of things that you should do, that are good for you. Which is why the act of going back and then back to the starting line again brings you forward, because now you're working on the habit of changing yourself. Which, if you continue, is obviously going to be extra value going forward, because now you're also, as long as you follow down the path, because the main thing is with new habits, the biggest thing is the activation energy. As Alex puts it, it takes 20 hours to learn the basics of something new, but many people take 10 years to do the first hour. And if you've get rid of a bad habit before, you've already started the first hour of what you're doing next, and probably more. Anyways, now that I've addressed the mistake earlier, I am going to continue with stuff for today. Let's see. Which note was I on? Feelings like joy and anger. Okay, I covered that. The weight we place on identity and free thought, even if we sometimes hate them. Right. Yes. So, in this case, when I say hate them, I'm not referring to free thought and identity, but I mean if you think about, if you sometimes say, if you hate who you are, which is possible, or if you hate the things you believe, maybe, to be true, you still put a lot of emphasis and defend the fact that it was an active choice of yours, which I believe I've mentioned a few times. But basically, it's like, if you're questioned on why you did something, you have to defend it as either, part of your identity or part of your logical reasoning, and you don't want to attribute it to things that would imply it was not done out of free will. Even though, we use our rational mind to control very little of what we do, when confronted with the reality of it, we like to believe that more of our actions are our decisions than they actually are, when they are most of the time just automatic actions. And just going down pre-existing neural pathways, so to speak. Okay. So we place a lot of weight on it because we have knee-jerk reactions, and then we defend those reactions after. The most important thing is to, when you have a knee-jerk reaction, pause and go. So it's not always, but like sometimes, or maybe always, it is probably reasonable to do so, but to pause and go, do I actually believe these things? And the benefit of this is that you free yourself from this, from being an NPC, essentially. And as horrible as that sounds, everything I say is not said to the listener, but to myself, because I was an NPC, basically. Not literally speaking, but like whenever you do things reactively and not actually as a product of thought, then you're just doing what you are programmed to do by your previous experiences and previous actions. So now some things are good. Like if you program good habits, then those are good things you can ignore. But if you've taken the time to go, okay, this is a good habit, I'm going to ignore this, and this is a bad habit, I'm going to try to reprogram this, then, you don't start as an NPC and are happy with all of your programming. You have to design the programming you want. It's almost like, I guess the simplest example is just Stockfish or the chess AI, where chess AI was very bad like 40 years ago, but they iterated and kept on improving it because it doesn't start off knowing everything. Okay. To work is to stress the capacity for tolerance. Muscles, studying, learning a skill. To do something, it's not the goal of, let's say you're drawing a picture or hiring an employee. It's not about, do I like this piece of art? It's, did the act of making this art make me know more about making art? Or did the act of, it's not, do I like this employee, or did I succeed or fail at hiring a good employee? Did the process of hiring this employee teach me more about how to select good employees? And if you set your internal reward systems like that, then you're more likely to have consistent internal rewards over time, rather than subjecting yourself to the ups and downs of external results. That is to say, rather than evaluating yourselves based on the output of the equation, rather than rewarding yourself based on the output of the equation, reward yourself based on whether or not you're improving at putting in the right input. So the simple example is, let's say poker, right? Or I guess for me, it's card games. And I've mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again because I think this is so important to myself, to teach myself, that the biggest mistake I notice other people make, and me, is that they don't improve if they evaluate a past decision based on the result and not the probability. So let's say my opponent has a 60, okay, I'm going to use poker here because the hands are universally known and the probabilities are known. I don't know the probabilities, so I'm going to use random numbers. Okay, I'm going to use random probabilities here. These are not reflective of actual poker probabilities. Let's say I have a hand. Let's say I have 3 4s or something, right? Like including the cards on the table. And I say my opponent, I have a 80% chance of, my opponent has a 20% chance of having a better hand than me. But given the way he, maybe the way he acts or whatever. But let's say he has a 20% chance, and then he ends up having a better hand than me. And then, or a different situation where my opponent has an 80% chance of having a better hand than me, and he doesn't. So I should reward myself for going with the choice that where I made a decision that had an 80% chance of success and failed, rather than rewarding myself for the case where I took a 20% success chance and won, right? So it's like you have to, because you want to reward behaviors you want to repeat, and not based on, like, you don't reward results you wish to repeat, because the process of getting that result may not be conducive to repeating that result. But if you reward it, they will repeat the process they took to get to that result, rather than actually repeating the result. And if the process they took to get to that result was good, then you're successful. But if the process they took was bad, you may not know that, like if they just got lucky. But if you look at something and you know that the process is good, and you know that if you do this more times, you will succeed more times, then you reward this behavior. So reward based on behavior rather than results. And this is something you know for yourself, right? You know what your behaviors are. You may not know for someone else. It may be more difficult if you're raising a kid and you're not around enough to see everything he does, obviously. But you can do this for your internal reward mechanisms. Okay, next. If you won't do something small for a small reward, then you won't do something big for a big reward. Okay. So I guess this, I'll use the example from the previous video. If you won't run once to have run once, then you're not going to run 3 times a week to be someone who runs 3 times a week. So being someone who runs 3 times a week is a bigger reward than being someone who ran once. However, running 3 times a week is also a bigger action than running once. So if you're not willing to run once for the having run once, then every single time of those 3 times a week, you would have to run once to have run once, and it adds up. So it's big things with big rewards are just accumulation of small things with small to sometimes non-existent or invisible rewards. For example, the way Simon says it is, you obviously, he's talking about relationships. I'm making a bit of a leap for this analogy here, but he talks about how he says you don't love your wife. There's no certain day where you start loving your wife. You just know that over time, throughout your relationship, all of the small things that add up, eventually there's you like, if I ask you on year 10, you might say you love your wife, and if I ask you on year, the first few months, you're not gonna say you love your girlfriend. At times they would be your girlfriend, but if I ask you what day you went from liking her to loving her, you probably won't be able to answer that. So, because it's a trajectory and it's a trend, and in this context, so it's not like if I run 3 times this week, can I say I run 3 times a week? Maybe, maybe not. It's like I can say I ran 3 times this week, and the next week I can say I ran 3 times this week, and it's like eventually I'll say I now run 3 times every week. But I have to have done that for a period of time to actually say that. The first time I run, I can say I ran once today. The second time I ran, I can say I ran twice this week. The third time I run, I can say I ran 3 times this week. And then the next week, I can say I ran 3 times this week, and so on, until eventually I'll be someone who runs 3 times every single week. Maybe there's going to be a time where I miss a week, I fail, and then I'll just be someone who tries to run 3 times every week. So it's a trend, it's a trajectory, right? You don't know the moment where it turns from you're trying and working for it to this is what you are, but right, it's not, it's your perception of it. Okay, the original point is, if you won't do something small for a small reward, you can't do something big for a big reward. I mean, you can say the same about a degree, right? It's like if you're not willing to do one course for 3 credits or whatever the course is worth, you're not going to do 40 courses for a degree. If you're not willing to do go do a job for a year, you're not going to do that job, build a career on that job, maybe get promotions. However the career works in that job, maybe you transition to be a consultant in 20 years for that job or whatever. But you're not going to have a career in that job in 20 years. Probably a different job is better for you if you can't do it for a year. If you're not willing to play soccer for 2 years to get on the team at your school, you're not going to play soccer for 20 years to be a professional soccer player. You get the idea. Many people live convincing themselves that the game sucks, but the end game content is where it's at. Oh my god. Okay, so you know how if maybe you can picture this, maybe you haven't experienced it, but you can picture it. It's very easy to picture, where maybe you try a game and then you're like, this is boring, and then I did this actually. I was this person, and then someone else comes and says, or like you post it somewhere or you say it somewhere. Let's say you tell your friend you don't like this game, it's boring, and your friend tells you, hey man, once you get past this amount of gameplay, it's gonna be fun. It's all about the end game content, bro. And you're either like, okay, I'll do that, or you're like, that's fucking stupid. Why would I slog through all of this shitty game to get to a good game? Like, why can't the game be good from the beginning? And here's the thing. The second one is actually the more valid one. It's like, if you're going to make a game, don't make it shit and say it gets good. It's like, if it's not fun from the start, it's not going to be fun, although fun later either. That example, if you hate every minute of studying medical textbooks, if you hate every minute of working with patients, if you hate every minute of looking at, talking, writing prescriptions, working with whatever it is, you're probably not going to like being a doctor, right? It's like, if you hate everything that a doctor does, you're not going to suddenly like it when you become a doctor. If it's sometimes you people will say, like, if you hate school, wait for university. If you hate university, wait till you get a job. If you hate your job, wait till you retire. It's like, I mean, yeah. Or if you hate building this business, wait until it's successful. It's like, you're not going to make a business successful by building it while hating everything about the business. You're not going to be successful at school and get into a good university. Okay, I mean, obviously a good university isn't actually going to be fun or anything, or meant to be fun, but it's not going to make you work hard at school. If you hate everything about the degree you're studying, it's not going to make you good at your job later. I mean, you could go through it anyway. Like, I'm not saying don't go to school if you don't enjoy it. That's not my point. I'll get to it in a bit. But okay, so you can study it, you can get a job with it, but you can also use what you've learned and not learn other things too. And then, now that you know more things, you can look for other jobs that you do enjoy. But my point is really just this. A lot of life, for a lot of people, is projecting that what you have now sucks, and that what you want is predicated on you just doing this for a really long time and hating it the entire time. And, maybe you'll just be able to, your reward will be that you can just stop doing it in the future. Or the flip side, which is also too far, is just follow your passions, which is not actionable, right? It's like, just fuck school, fuck university, fuck jobs, just do whatever it is you want to do without knowing how it's going to work out. Just be an artist, just be a streamer, just be a musician, just build a business. And that's not exactly effective either. There is no answer, really. There's no one answer, because it will vary by person. And every single person has their own journey they'll have to go through. But my point is this. Don't put your happiness over there, which is actually similar to self-improvement, right? It's Mark Manson talks about this. It's like the act of working to desire something on the predication that your current self sucks. It's in itself a negative experience. So if you say I enjoy improvement, or I enjoy improving at this thing, let's say playing music or drawing art, then you can make this meaningful and say that this is what I want to do. If you say I want to be good at art, so everything I'm doing now is for the express purpose of being good at art so that I can enjoy myself when I'm good at art, it's probably not going to work out. And that's the differentiation for whatever it is you actually want to do, I guess. That's really all I'm trying to boil it down to, in terms of the answer that I seem to come across. Now, I'm not saying this is the be-all, end-all answer, but that is my summary of the answer based on what I've read. That's the message I got from the books I've read. That's all I can say. Maybe I'll have a better answer in the future, a more detailed answer, more precise answer, but for now, that's all I got. Okay, next. It's not about doing your best, it's about doing... Wait, what? What the... Why did I write white privilege right after this? It looks like I wrote it's not about doing your best, it's about doing white privilege. What does this even mean? What was I thinking about when I wrote white privilege? That looks like a separate message, but what the that's a separate note, but there's no context. What is wrong with me? Well, I was thinking about something related to white privilege at the time. Okay, anyways. I'm gonna skip this note because I have no idea what I was thinking. Was I asleep? This makes no sense. Huh. It's about doing what's required. This is a quote from Alex Hormozi. So basically, instead of saying I'm gonna do my best and doing whatever your best, whatever you think your best is, maybe you say I'm gonna look at what it is I want, then I'm gonna look at what is required to get it, and then I'll do that. Or you can go, I'm not willing to go that far, or that's more than my best, and go, maybe I'll have to lower my desired result. Because if you say my best is to work, let's say you want to be a musician. My best is to work 4 hours a day, to play music 4 hours a day. After that, I'm done. I can't do anymore. And then you go, I'm going to do my best every day, and that's going to get me the result I want. And the result I want is to be the best musician in the world. Okay, well, the problem is that there are people probably more talented than you that play music for more than you and love music more than you. So you're not going to get that result. So if you look at being the best musician in the world and look at the things that's required, which probably, when you want things that include best in the world, that's going to include things other than hard work and working right. And because there's going to be other people who have all of those things, but also have maybe genetics, upbringing, maybe they started earlier than you, advantages that are outside your control. If your goal is only to improve yourself, then you can always do that. But if your goal is to be better than every single other person who has all of everything you have and possibly more, then that's going to be predicated on external factors outside of your control. But the point is this. If you have your best here and you set a goal up here, you can't just say I did my best so I deserve the reward, right? But if you look at what you want and then look at what it takes to get there, and then you look at whether or not you're willing to do that or pay that price for that reward, then sometimes you have to go, I'll have to shoot lower, or I'll have to work harder. One of those two things it's a fact. If you're not willing currently to do the work required to get the reward you want, you have to aim lower or increase your threshold for what you're willing to put in. You're going to have to do more than your best, or what you consider to be your best right now. Like if you say you did your best yesterday, then the question is, can you do that every day? Is it possible for you to do more than that? Do other people do more than that? Do other people do better than that? And so on. And it's like, if you also want to be better than them, then what you just said about what you did yesterday, which you claimed was your best, is not going to be enough. Okay. I think I was in the middle of writing Alex Hormozi's quote in terms of it's about doing what's required, and then I ended up writing white privilege for some fucking reason because of I was listening to something else that mentioned white privilege and it intercepted my writing. I have no idea. That's my theory. Sometimes that happens. Like yeah, okay. I'm actually trolling. As for white privilege, I'm not one of these people who are like talk about like the patriarchy or white supremacy or anything like that. It's just I'm sure it was just a discussion in regards to something. I don't know, but I don't believe in that stuff, but you know. I personally think white privilege is overrated. I'm sure there are like advantages, not purposeful discrimination, but maybe like your name is a bit more society friendly. Like if they read your application, some jobs I'm sure it's easier. Probably not on purpose, but like biases based on their that they're subconscious biases when they read your name. Maybe they're a bit friendlier because being white can be considered more attractive to some people subconsciously. That's not really a choice on purpose, the purposeful discrimination. But like, I think that it's not even the most powerful privilege. Like, male privilege in certain areas, females have privileges in certain areas, whites have privileges in certain areas. I want to say blacks, but not really, actually. I mean, blacks have physical genetic advantages, but that's only on the extremes, right? Like on average, it doesn't. If you're the average person, it doesn't actually matter. Like, so I mean, I guess blacks are disadvantaged in on average, but if you're ugly, you're more disadvantaged than if you're black. So I think white privilege is overrated. Okay. Difficulty only comes from mental resistance. Oh, I think this was also by Alex. But this is I really like this because I mean, I don't actually know what to do about this because I still feel mental resistance, but it's true that if you find something difficult, it's only because you are mentally resistant to doing it. If you actively, like, two people could do the same thing and while they have different experiences. And when I say difficult, I'm talking about difficult versus easy and not simple versus complex. And so I'll give you an example. Let's say we took, someone who likes music, maybe a professional musician, and someone random, and told them to practice music for 3 hours. One person will find it difficult and one person won't. And it's because one of them has mental resistance to the activity. I know if you took me and told me to practice music for 3 hours, I'm going to find it difficult because I'm going to have a lot of mental resistance. So that's the example. Now, don't get me wrong. Pain can, like, if I tell you to do 100 push-ups in a row, you're going to find that difficult for a different reason. But that's not what I mean here. I'm mostly talking about in terms of, like, if I tell you to do X, like, spend your time on X, or if I tell you to learn about marketing, study marketing for 30 minutes every single day. If you find it fascinating, like, if you find sources or videos that talk about marketing in a very interesting in ways that you find interesting, you're going to find it very easy. If you read articles about it, or journals, or papers, or textbooks, or whatever, and you find the things they talk about interesting, it's not going to be difficult. If you find them boring, it's going to be difficult. And that's the mental resistance to what it is that you're reading, or the activity of reading it. You can only do a lot of something by doing less of something else. Right, okay. So if you want to do more of something today, you're going to be doing less of something else. Now, that something else might be lazing around if you spend a lot of time doing that. Whatever it is that you're taking time away from. Because right now you spend 24 hours every single day. And after doing more of something, you would still be spending 24 hours every single day. So that time has to come from somewhere. So you can only do a lot of something by doing less of other things. And you can decide what those things are on purpose, but it's only possible if you do less of other things. Okay. I'm going to count that as making up for my skipped day yesterday.